Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is brought to you by Bet365. Wherever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Mike Gill, Ryan Rothstein, on-site producer Danny Ryan. We are live at the Gallery Bar Book and Games at Ocean Casino Resort. It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on all podcasting platforms. And don't forget, check out their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. And Geoff Mosher's here on a day where the Eagles got to 8-1 yesterday, Moshe. And obviously, I think we've been talking, like, the theme of this today is the identity of the Eagles is becoming more and more clear, that you're going to just have to out-physical them. You're going to have to pay attention to detail. You're going to have to find a way to be uncomfortable in beating them. The Eagles are comfortable winning like they did yesterday, and that's why the Dallases and the Miamis lose these games. They are not comfortable trying to win a close game like this. And is this becoming who the Eagles are this season?
I guess so, Mike. I mean, I think you can add to what you just said about what you have to do to beat the Eagles is not completely fall all over yourself in the when you have a golden opportunity to beat them. We can add that, but that kind of goes to the point where you've got to play a pretty darn good game. You got to play your A game if you're going to beat the Eagles, and the Cowboys did not play their A game. They played a pretty good game, but when you had to make a simple play there in the last 40 seconds of the game and you're at their 5, you can't completely fall all over yourself the way the Cowboys did. I do give credit to Josh Sweat getting the big sack there that helped push them back. But that was just a comedy of errors and mishaps by the Cowboys in the final 40 seconds there. And also the Eagles, by the way, on the James Bradbury pass interference that even allowed that sequence of events to happen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of sloppiness in the game for both sides, too. I mean, Philadelphia, what did you think of their fourth quarter play calling and the way they couldn't finish the game out? Because that's something that we've lauded them for in the past is, hey, they run these games out. They got 9-minute drives. They got 7-minute drives. And they could not extend the drives, and it kept giving Dallas a chance to basically vomit on itself.
It's always good when you're watching a game, right, and you're watching a situation and you have a thought about it, and as a fan or as someone in the media, right, and then your thought is echoed by the expert who's broadcasting the game, assuming that person's an expert. So what I'm talking about is the fourth quarter, 3rd and 3. I think everybody who's followed the Eagles and know what their strengths are figures, all right, 3rd and 3, you're going to run the ball here, probably get 1 or 2 yards, and then set yourself up for a tush push and do your thing because that's what you've done all year. That's what you've done this game. That's how you basically predicated your success this year on breaking the backs of your opponent. Greg Olsen he basically was laying it out. Here's what they're going to do. They're probably going to run it. Then they don't get it. They set up the tush push. There you go. Fresh them down. And then not only do they opt for a pass play that sort of was a low percentage one, but then Jalen Herz tries to go deep with the ball instead. So I had an issue, with that from a play calling standpoint. But that's one of many plays. I think they did run a bunch of very good plays. I thought Jalen Hurts' throw to Devontae Smith to open the third quarter with a touchdown was a tremendous play. I like the play call on the A.J. Brown touchdown where he sort of lined up where Goddard would normally be. Goddard's hurt it, so it looked like almost like a 3 tight end package the way he was crouched there and then came across the scrimmage. So I thought for 3 quarters, Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni and the offensive staff were doing a good job, and that's what made the 3rd and 3 in the fourth quarter so confusing to me.
You look at the defensive side of the ball, and Brandon Graham, BG, only played, I think, like 24% of the snaps. Moshe, obviously 2 massive plays to help cover up some warts there late by the Birds to seal the win. Secondary had issues. We'll get to that with you in a second. But talk about the D-line, the depth there, what you saw or did not see yesterday in the win.
Yeah, you just nailed it right there, Ryan. It's about the depth of the D-line, that a guy like Brandon Graham, who is a Super Bowl hero, who's I believe a 2-time Pro Bowler, had 12 sacks last year. I know he had double digits, and is generally regarded as one of the better defensive ends in Eagles history, only plays 24% of the snaps because that's how many other good pass rushers the Eagles have. And then he comes in and makes a great play or two at the end of the game because he's fresh and he's ready to go, and he's going up against Dallas offensive linemen who, in general, did a good job, but, have been blocking all day long and are feeling the wear and tear of just playing a very physical divisional battle. Adam and I on the podcast were talking about the San Francisco 49ers adding Chase Young. And when you look at Chase Young and Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead, you could say, hey, they've got just as good of a front four as the Eagles do, and you only really rush with four because most teams don't blitz that much, right? So you compare it, but every once in a while you got to take some guys off the field and give them a breather. And I don't know if there's a better team than the Eagles who are able to still maintain a really solid pass rush when they take some of their better players off and put guys like Brandon Graham on, and that's why in fourth quarters it comes up so big for them.
Let's go to the secondary, Moshe, and I want your thoughts and analysis. No, I'm fine. No, it's. I know it's ugly, dude. Right? I mean, let's talk about the secondary, specifically slot, and how the Eagles are going to defend there, or who they're going to put in there to defend, I should say. And I just want your thoughts on Blankenship.
Yeah. So, I think Reed Blankenship's doing a pretty decent job. I have to go check the All-22 when it comes out today and see how he held up in that past game. I feel like the culprits on, CeeDee Lamb and maybe Ferguson at times were more the Eli Rickses, Sidney Brown in the slot than they were Blankenship. I think Blankenship helped make the big tackle.
No, I thought he played well, Moshe, just to put some
Yeah. Blankenship holding up well. Right.
Yeah.
But there were some, like against Washington, though, he obviously got victimized a couple of times, too, which just kind of goes to show you, to your point, Ryan, is that the secondary right now can be a very, very big question mark. Kevin Byard helped stabilize it, but without a true nickel corner, without Bradley Roby, who tweeted that he will be back after the bye week here coming up, that's good news. But without that, they have just had no response. And I think compounding the issue is that there have been times, and you saw it yesterday, where James Bradberry has not played well at all. There have been times where Darius Slay hasn't played well. I think more so on Bradberry than Slay, but really both of them. You do wonder, I think it's a fair question to ask. I tried to get Jason Avant's opinion on this on the pregame show, but we can't really know because we're not in their heads. You wonder if the outside corners are impacted by a lack of trust or the lack of experience around them at safety and at nickel, and they are feeling like they got to do too much. But I can't sit there and say that that's a reason why James Bradberry last week against Washington would bite on a play fake and let Terry McLaurin get behind him when he's the outside boundary corner. You're the last guy from the run. Why are you biting on it at that point? And then not turning around yesterday on a ball in the air, 30 yards and getting the pass interference. I don't know if that's a lack of trust or we're watching James Bradberry just not play well this year, but the secondary in general is very fortunate that the Eagles are scoring a lot of points and that the front four is getting home at opportune times.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think it was G. Cobb who tweeted something out, who said it's becoming apparent that the Eagles secondary are showing their age. They're slowing down. They got hurt yesterday, both of them. Is that a concern in your eyes that Slay and Bradberry, two of the strengths of the defense last year, are not the same players that they were just one season ago?
Yeah, it's almost two different things. I don't know that those two guys, their lack of speed is the problem because James Bradberry has never been a speed corner. He's always been a better zone corner. The Eagles are playing more man defense than they played in the past under Jonathan Gannon. So now you're asking James Bradberry in more man coverage when he's known more as a zone corner. This is sort of how he fell out with the Giants, too. So adjusting to the new scheme is part of it. It is true. You look at their secondary, you don't see guys running 4-2, 4-3. But I look around secondaries that are more successful. I'm not sure you're finding a ton of that anyway. I think that the lack of experience, we're talking about Reed Blankenship, Eli Ricks, Josh Jobe, Sidney Brown, things like that, is hurting the team, and the lack of a real nickel corner is hurting the team more so than not being the fastest secondary in the world, and maybe things that Sean Desai is doing in man coverage isn't helping them out as much, although at times I think it has. So that's my roundabout way of saying, yeah, we could be watching a decline of two corners, which would be normal because they're both over 30. Kevin Byard's over 30. So we should expect a little bit of that. But I do think the bigger issue is just that young kids who have not played roles that they're asking being played are playing a lot of snaps.
Let me throw this out there, right? Like, does it matter? And when I say does it matter about the secondary motion, because I'm concerned, I asked you about it, but we talked about the depth up front. And I look at that game yesterday, and I once again credit Howie, right? Because the depth up front, as we've discussed, helped mask any and all issues behind them in the secondary, right? So just your thoughts on that, and I'll ask, can this team, as it currently sits, how it currently sat yesterday, can it win a Super Bowl?
Yes, it can win a Super Bowl. I believe it can. I mean, they're 8-1. They've covered up their flaws better than, like, every team has flaws, right? I'm sure if we were all Kansas City media, we'd be like, can this offense that Kansas City has win a Super Bowl? They don't even have a receiver out, after Travis Kelce. They don't have a wide receiver who you can rely on to catch passes. I'm sure that people feel that way about other really good teams right now, that there are flaws that you wonder if they can overcome. So the Eagles have overcome their flaws better than any team in the NFL. So, yes, they can. They have great playmakers. They have to survive and take their lumps. We'll see how they do without Dallas Goedert here. But at the same time, Ryan, to answer your question, like, they could also get picked off in the biggest of big games because of their deficiency. Last year, they should have won the Super Bowl. Why did they get picked off in the Super Bowl? Well, because they allowed a special teams meltdown that gave Kansas City the ball at the 5, right? And, you give that Kansas City team the ball at the 5-yard line or wherever it was, they're going to score. And that wound up being such a huge part of the game. And, of course, James Bradbury defensive hold, right? So they're not perfect, obviously, and they can be beaten, but they've done a better job than anybody else right now of being able to masquerade where their flaws are. I agree with you on the Howie Roseman comment, and we talk about this all the time. It works not just on defensive line, but offensive line, too. Dallas Cowboys brought it, man. They got great pass rushers, and if you don't have that offensive line, I'm not sure you're in that game. Jalen Herz may take 5 or 6 more hits if you didn't have a really good offensive line. And with his knee situation, that would have been bad for Jalen Hurts. So, yes, I always applaud Howie's ability to build through the trenches steadfastly and not get lured by the other shiny toys like wide receiver sometimes or something else in the second or third round. Obviously, they've always needed corners and safeties and linebackers, but he steadfastly goes with the offensive defensive line, knowing that'll cover that up.
Yeah.
But if you want to knock him on some of these moves that he made in offseason as far as letting all these safeties go and sort of trying to replace it with Terrell Edmonds and, drafting Sidney Brown in the third round and then having to trade for Kevin Byard, you could say, yeah, he probably didn't fully stock the cupboard as well as he could have.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. On Wednesday, I think we might have asked you, what's the difference between Philly and Dallas? When you look at these two teams entering the game, what kind of is, the difference between the two teams? Did you watch that game on Sunday and get a clear picture in your mind of what separates these two teams?
Can you remind me of what my answer was on Wednesday?
Well, I think a lot of people, as we ask that question a lot, and a lot of people say, well, the Eagles have Herz, and Prescott has, he's kind of been the reason why they lose. And I look at that game, Moshe, and see again that Dallas's lack of attention to detail does them in. And that is generally, we talked about all week, the Eagles are just a more mentally tough, a more physical team than Dallas. And you're asking Dallas to win a game that they are uncomfortable winning.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I wouldn't micro or zero in on Hertz versus Dak. I thought Dak actually played a pretty good game. Could he, fourth down he throws it to Tolbert, Ferguson's open. All right, I can find out like countless cases this year of Jalen Hurts doing the same thing, throwing it to a guy when another guy's open. So that to me isn't as much of an issue. And yes, he shouldn't have taken that sack at the end. But I think overall, Dallas did not play and had too many bad penalties. They didn't play the crisp, mentally sound game, and they weren't as tough as the Philadelphia Eagles were on yesterday. We'll see what happens in Game 2, but yesterday, to me, I agree with you, that's what separated the Eagles from the Cowboys. The Eagles made fewer mistakes.
Yes, but that seems to be the difference in these two teams over the last X amount of years, right? In this Prescott
not when they face each other, though, because I think the Eagles have lost to the Cowboys more in the last four, right? I mean,
that was the only time they
a lot of the games have been weird. A lot of the games have been weird, though. I think you're right. It's not fair to just to make that as a – because the two quarterbacks have not faced off each other, whether it's Minshew playing or Cooper Rush playing or Ben DiNucci playing. You haven't had the two teams at full strength until really yesterday. They've only played twice. Yesterday was the second time they've ever actually faced off against each other. But I agree with you. I think that Dak played a really good game, except for in the key moments. Like, he's got to know you can't take a delay of the game penalty there. You've been in the league for 10 years, and it's awful. It's awful. Yeah. It's so bad. And look, the attention to detail. Like, you have to have the awareness of where you are in that field to get that 2-point conversion because of how big that 2 points was. I mean, that's awful.
Hey, listen, you're right, but like that's why I'm trying to just keep it to yesterday because literally, I know I don't want to call it a big if. I mean, they certainly could have scored a touchdown there and won the game, right? I mean, they're at the 5. We would be saying that about James Bradbury right now. Like, you have to turn your head around when the ball's in the air and not pass interference on a receiver in that situation. But it just so happened that the Dallas mistake was more costly than the Eagle mistake in that situation.
Well, and I think, Ryan, you read that stat earlier. You know, when they're playing from behind, Hertz is the number 1 passer in the league. When they're playing from behind, Prescott's the worst-rated passer in the league. It's the feeling that Jalen Hurts is going to find a way. Even if I throw for 205 yards, I'm going to make the big throw. The throw I'm going to make, the one he makes to Smith, the one that he makes, there's a throw he made to Goddard to extend a drive. I mean, he just makes the throw. He makes the big play. And I think you're not talking about Hertz and Prescott as a separation. In the big moments, though, that might be the difference.
You know, that's fair. I certainly think both quarterbacks played well, but if you're going to ask me who played the smarter and who played the tougher game, it's Jalen Hurts by a mile yesterday. I mean, that to me is no doubt.
All right, Moshe, got a week off, got the bye week here. Number one, I got 2 quick questions on that. Sirianni's press conference has been moved 3 times today. Is there any thought in your mind as to why?
No, but there's a thought in my mind is how many more times can they move this thing? I don't know why.
Well, a lot of times when you delay something, it's because news, right? Do you think there's news that they're pushing back? I don't know. I mean, do you think something could come out about Hertz, or is that just thinking the worst?
It's certainly possible. I've thought about that. I've thought about the Dallas Goddard injury and how they want to, discuss that. He broke it. If he's got a broken forearm, I know that there's been reports he's going to be out for 4 weeks. I mean, like that's a tough injury to come back in 4 weeks from.
Yeah.
We were talking to Clay Harbor on the post-game show, and he was shocked that was the estimation. So we'll have to. As everybody knows, Clay Harbor infamously broke his wrist, not playing football, but
playing lingerie football. Yeah, right. Lingerie football.
We all been there.
We've had Clay on talking about his bachelorette appearance many times. We're actually going to have Dr. David Chow on tomorrow to talk more about his injury and Hertz's injury, because this Hertz thing,
good.
We're going to see, how much longer is this bone bruise, if that's in fact what it is, going to linger for him? I mean, you get a week off here. Does that help at all? So that's tomorrow here on the Sports Bash. That's Geoff Mosher. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, you can check that out everywhere where you listen to podcasts, and check them out on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. All right, Mosher, you're a good man.
I'm surrounded by great men. Have a great one, guys.